Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn, Care Without the Cost, free support for veterans and their spouses. My name is Kevin Snyder, Snyder Law. I am an estate planning and elder law planning attorney. That means I'm in the peace of mind business. I give peace of mind to families across the board, all age demographics from 18 to over 100. No joke. We have a client who's 103. About how they can have peace of mind that they're going to be planned accordingly for when life happens. Whether it's a death or an incapacity, a lawsuit, things are going to be protected, and they're going to be protected, their family's going to be protected, their legacies are going to be protected. In that, we have a special segment of our clients who are veterans. And veterans are really near and dear in my heart because my dad is a veteran. He served in the Army in the 60s. My father-in-law is a veteran, served same time period. And I know a lot of people that are veterans, or whether they're my parents' age or they served in Iraq or Afghanistan post 9/11. I happen to be blessed to know a lot of them, and I didn't serve. I didn't have that call. However, I have been able to succeed in life because those veterans out there did answer the call, and no matter what you did in the military, whether you were in combat, you were in a combat zone, you were in another country like Germany, or you were home. You were doing something important. You signed the contract to put your life on the line, understanding that there could be a situation in which you were not coming back or coming back the way that you were going in. And you signed willingly to do that. And for that, we are forever grateful. I am forever grateful, and I'm indebted to you. So thank you for your service. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic. And this topic is important because there's a lot of misinformation about all of the support that's available for veterans and their spouses and their families, for that matter. So we're going to go through that today, and we're going to talk about and go through a case example. And the case example comes from real life. So we have a husband and a wife, and the husband served in the Naval Reserves during the late 60s. And we're going to call him Bill. And then his wife, and we're going to call her Connie. And Bill and Connie are a wonderful couple, married for a long time. They have adult children, they have a house, and they have some savings for retirement. And so they are hit, however, with the unfortunate reality that Bill has dementia, and dementia is progressing quite rapidly. So he has this question, or Connie really has this question, is how can I help care for my husband? I'm here at home and I'm barely making it by. I'm worried that he's going to be walking out of the house. He needs to be supervised. We have a limited amount of money. Our biggest assets are home. We want to live in our home. And she's a little bit younger than Bill and in relatively good health. So what does life look like for the next few years as Bill further progresses with his dementia? What's life going to look like after Bill passes away for Connie? But most immediately, the fear of losing that nice nest egg that they had saved up for and their wonderful house is very real and tangible. So Connie and Bill's story is a very common one. And so we're going to delve into that. How can we help people like Bill and Connie? So we're going to look at veterans benefits. So I sit down with Bill and Connie and I go through a triage. And all right, so the triage is looking at what is available and getting Bill and Connie some access to funds. What kind of funds do we need? What is the care that Bill needs? So we need to bring in some partners. So I'm often at these strategy meetings, we will talk about bringing in a financial advisor that they have. Bill and Connie have a great one. And to get a better understanding of how the investments are invested, particularly when we have a bulk of them in retirement assets like IRAs or Roth IRAs. Talk about bringing in a care coordinator. So sometimes they're called geriatric care managers or life care managers. They come in, they're consultants to the family to say, hey, Connie, this is what we can expect based on what we know in our experience of working with dementia patients. These are the type of available options for care out there, the continuum of care, in-home care versus assisted living. Maybe it's a boarding care. This is what's available. And of course, worst case scenario, we're in a nursing home, which isn't assisted living. A nursing home is acute care and a skilled nursing facility. So if you've ever been to a hospital and gotten a surgery and then had a transition and rehab before going home, that is a skilled nursing facility. That's post-acute care. Those places, unfortunately, are really not geared to be long-term care. It's supposed to be temporary. Some of these places are not nice places. They're like a hospital, but some of them are like a dirty hospital. And if you've ever been in one, you know that's not where you want to be, and that's not where you want your loved one to be. So how do we avoid that scenario? And how do we pay for all of this? How's Connie Bill going to pay for in-home care when in-home care is expensive? You can easily be paying at a minimum $4,000 a month for a very light care, all the way up to $15,000 a month here in Southern California for a more round-the-clock care at home. Assisted living can run, and boarding cares can run anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. A nice memory care facility is going to be closer to $12,000 to $15,000. How do we pay for that? So I look at, and we triage, we talk to the financial advisor. Now we know from the care coordinator, okay, this is what we can kind of expect. Bill's dementia is going to progress. He's going to go to memory care. So we need to be able to afford in-home care for now to help Connie out. Maybe we're looking now at his level of dementia not being too deep. If it's not too deep, maybe we can do a little adult daycare. That costs money. Insurance isn't going to cover that. Medicare is not going to cover that. So how do we make up the difference now that we know what the cost outlays are? And they're going to increase because we start at the cheapest adult daycare. We're going to go to in-home care as that progresses to a point where assisted living would make more sense. And it was to now it's assisted living, but in a memory care facility. And now we're at the $12,000 to $15,000 mark. And so how do we afford all that? Well, not bleeding Connie dry, because after Bill does pass, then Connie's going to need money to live certainly want her to be comfortable, not extravagant, but comfortable, not run out of money. So how do we address these concerns? That's what we're talking about. So after talking to the financial advisor and understanding as we model this out, what the runway is and the money, just based on assumptions and based on what today's costs are, we have a better idea of what the runway is. And so how do we supplement that to provide some buffers? Bill and Connie don't have long-term care insurance. This is a big clarion call now for long-term care insurance. This is super important because long-term care insurance, you might not be able to pay for everything that you need, but you're certainly throwing a buffer of money out there. $300,000. I see that commonly in policies with $300,000, $500,000. Boom, we throw that at the care costs. And even if it doesn't, some of these policies have daily maximums, and they're not covering the entire daily cost, but they're covering a majority of it, and that's just throwing money at this problem and creating a buffer so we don't have to draw down the assets, the pot of gold, the savings, or leverage the house. We can stretch out that the long-term care policy will help us stretch it out. But we don't have that, and a lot of times we don't because it's just slipped by a lot of people. And there's a lot of misnomers about that. We'll have another lunch and learn about the benefits of long-term care and demystifying it. So pay attention and watch out for that. But now we're moving down to, okay, we can't do long-term care other than just spending down the money and risking Connie's being impoverished later. What are we going to do? So we have a house. Have we explored reverse mortgage? Not a dirty word. Don't be fooled. There's new products, there are different products than were available 15 to 20 years ago. And there's highly regulated, and there's a lot of opportunity, all right, between line of credits to lump sums. This could be a good option. We bring in a reverse mortgage specialist to give the good advice about what is available so you have the full information. And then we look at, are you a veteran? If you're a veteran or your spouse of a veteran, we might have some really good income. So we need to look at veteran benefits. So that's here where we are in our triage. And even if we do some of these other things, even if there's a long-term care policy, even if, hey, look, we're going to leverage the house with a reverse mortgage, we want to look at veteran benefits in addition. And so what are these benefits? They're medical and financial support for veterans and their spouses, and it's managed by the Department of Veteran Affairs. So this is federal. So we're dealing with federal law here. There are some state benefits, and we'll touch on that briefly, but this is federal law. And here we are with on top of Thanksgiving almost. Next week will be Thanksgiving, so inspired the cornucopia here because it really is a cornucopia of benefits to the VA. It's pretty expansive, and this is where I think the first misnomers come in. Is like, what is the breadth of these benefits? Because we just kind of collectively call them VA benefits. Well, they have specific names, and there's this list of benefits here. One thing benefits are not, it's not military retirement. So if you are a service member and discharged and you have 20 years in, you are eligible to collect retirement. And that money comes from the Department of Defense. That does not come from the Department of Veteran Affairs. Separate department, separate pot of funds. Good news is, if you're listening to this or know somebody who is career military and is collecting a retirement, military retirement from the department, from the federal government, from the Department of Defense, they still can get these VA benefits, the financial ones on top of that. They can double dip. So there is that ability. There's some limited ability. So they do reduce some of the funds you can get on VA benefits if you're collecting your military retirement, but it is allowed. So don't take heed or listen to anybody who says, hey, you get military retirement, you cannot get VA benefits, or don't have that misassumption. Oh, I already get retirement. I'm not going to be eligible for anything financial from the VA. Not true. There are people that get both. So other benefits, though, for the VA, the number one is VA healthcare. That means all veterans are have that available to them. It doesn't matter what your discharge status was. You can be dishonorably discharged and still get access to VA healthcare. Now, it'll be limited. You don't get everything that an honorable or other than honorable or any other type of discharge gets, but you still do have access to some limited healthcare, like mental health care, even for those that are dishonorably discharged. So that goes for anybody. It doesn't matter when you served, where you served, how long you served. You get this VA healthcare benefit, full stop. So, but you got to key into the healthcare system. You got to go to the VA and get yourself in the system, and we'll show you how to do that in just a second. If you don't do that, you're not going to get access to benefits. Well, I already have a doctor. I don't need that. Well, that's okay. You get to keep your doctor. No one's going to force you to go to the VA hospital or use a VA medical teams. They just want to get you in the system. So it's a voluntary basis. You can keep your doctor. You can keep your own health care if you're on TRICARE as a person who retired from the military and gets military retirement, or if your spouse has better healthcare benefits and you're using their healthcare, that's fine. It's there if you want it. If you need it, you can use it for a limited basis, like helping to pay for prescriptions. It might be cheaper to get your prescriptions through the VA. Get hearing aids, for example. These are all side benefits that you only get if you're clued in. You can simply get the hearing aids and continue to go to your doctor for everything else. So not a problem. So that's healthcare. We need healthcare. You need to be in there first before you can get any of these other benefits we're going to talk about. VA pension, do not be confused with retirement. It is called pension, and pension's often connected with retirement because that's what those plans are called, pension plans. I retired from General Electric and I have pension. Of course, a lot of that has gone away for the modern era, but we still have individuals that came of age in the 60s or baby boomers. They worked and got a pension in a lot of places. So that's not this, all right? So don't confuse it with military retirement. I don't know why they decided to use the word. It's confusing, but VA pension refers to financial benefits for non-service related disabilities. I'll slow that down. Pension benefits is a financial benefit, so a financial stipend for those veterans that served during a wartime period that have a disability that has nothing to do with their service. That's what VA pension is. Non-service connected disability through the VA. Often hear it referred to as aid and attendance. Reality is that's just one level. There's three different kinds of pension. There's basic, homebound, and aid and attendance. we hear a lot about aid in attendance is because those that pursue it are people like Connie for their husbands because Bill needs assistance with some activities of daily living. Also, aid in attendance offers the most money. So you don't need to be have a disability to get pension as long as you're 65 years old, because the federal government says automatically you're disabled when you turn 65. I'm just going to presume you're disabled. And so if you meet all the other requirements, you actually can get basic pension, which is a financial stipend, small amount. If you're homebound, you can't drive, you're stuck at home. Doesn't mean you're bedbound, but you're homebound. You can get money. And of course, if you need assistance with activities of daily living, such as dressing, going to the bathroom, showering, making meals, transferring from sitting to standing to moving room to room, transportation in VA also counts as an activity of daily living. Then you get aid in attendance. Survivor's benefits for those are loved ones that survive the veteran. They are surviving spouse of a veteran. They can get benefits. They're called survivor's benefits in general, survivor's pension. So if you can get aid in attendance as a veteran, then your spouse can get basically the equivalent of aid in attendance for the survivor. It's less money, but it's better than nothing. There's also a new VA caregiver program to pay stipends to family members like spouses or children that are acting as caregiver. And then there's disability compensation. And disability compensation is for service-connected disabilities. So if you are rated disabled through the VA, you get a financial stipend based on your rating. 10%, 20%, 30%, 70%, 100%. That will clue you into a number. And right now, if you're 100%, you can get a check in the mail for $2,300 a month. If you're rated a lower percentage, it's just a percentage of that $2,300. So 70%, you get 70% of $2,300 a month. So if you have PTSD, if you have cancer, and you served in certain time periods and places, then you can get this type of disability. Of course, if there's a causal connection, like you got in an accident when you were serving the military and then you're paralyzed, things like that, then that counts as well for disability compensation. So those four: VA pension, aka in attendance, survivor benefits, VA caregiver program, disability compensation, the ones we're going to focus on, because that's what I'm focused on for Bill, Connie and Bill. There's other things, of course. There's funeral benefits. You can have military honors at your funeral. They can help pay for some burial costs, not all. They're not going to pay for the whole thing, but and the same with cremation. Not going to pay for the whole thing, but there can be some reimbursement there. You can have access to be buried at any veteran cemetery in the country. So does your spouse. Of course, you have to sign up for that in advance, would be the good idea, or else it could be a delay after you pass away and your family can't bury you. And then, of course, there's Arlington National Cemetery, and that's a select list. You definitely have to get that in order and have approval well in advance for that to happen. And there's special requirements as far as that goes. VA dependency and indemnity, you might hear DIC. That's if you have a military service member who is gets killed in an action or killed while serving in the military. Let's say a car accident off base or on base. There's some accident and leads to a death. Then the family is getting dependency and indemnity. So the spouse is getting funds, the children are getting funds. And lastly, there are state-specific benefits. Each state is different. So my dad lives in Massachusetts. So Massachusetts has a great program. They have specific benefits through the state in addition to what the federal government adds. Not additional money, but additional resources. All right. In California, same. So California is also very good in the resource department. No additional stipends, but a lot of resources and some indirect money. And the one thing that wows people that they don't know about is that you can get your child, if you served and you're a veteran, you are a resident of California, then your child, if they can get into any UC school or any Cal State school, then the state of California will pay full tuition. Now they got to get in, but they'll get full tuition paid for room and board, anything else, ancillaries you got to take care of, but that's a huge bill. That's a huge benefit that's not coming out of your pocket and gives a lot of good opportunity to children of veterans for that educational piece. We got some great schools here. We got some great UC schools, great Cal State schools, and now you can stay in state and go to school. And there's plenty of them up and down. California's a big state, so you can go far away from home and your veteran's parent could pay for your education. So that is something that, I haven't surveyed all the other states, but I just know California. That's great. So I put the website on here, calvet.ca.gov. Check them out. They have a good summary of all the benefits available for California-based veterans. It's also, you can check it out. They have a good summary on what on the federal level too. VA has a great website. It is like an encyclopedia though, so it's vast. You can get lost in there very easily. I have some research that you stick around to the end. I pinpointed some specific links that you can go to, get you right to the information. You don't have to sift through everything. You'll get these slides too. If you stay to the end, you'll get these slides, and Laura will send them out to you, and there's hyperlinks, so you just click it and it goes. So all these VA benefits sound great, right? So why aren't more people using them? This is silly. Why aren't more people using these benefits? Well, that's because there's a lot of misinformation out there. I hear it all the time, every week. On a weekly basis, I am meeting with a client who is a veteran. Now, they might not be meeting with me because they're looking for veteran benefits. Some are. They're coming in because they want to do their estate planning. But we, in the conversation, of course, bring up the fact that they have veteran status, and sometimes that influences the planning that we do, of course, and other times it's because they want to explore how veteran benefits is going to help them, or their children are trying to explore how veteran benefits is going to help pay for the care that mom and dad need. So we're having those conversations, and I'm hearing, I didn't know that. I thought I wasn't qualified because, or you know what? I say, are you a veteran? And immediately they're anticipating the question. Sometimes they say, you know what? I don't qualify for VA benefits. And I say, why? Why do you think you're not qualified? And they say, well, I don't qualify because, and they fill in things that are just, this misinformation, misassumptions that they've collected along the way. Maybe someone told them some incorrect information. And they say, well, I got it from the VA. Well, VA is like calling Verizon. It depends on who you talk to. If you call Verizon, you're trying to get information about whatever program you're on or whatever, and what deals are out there, you might get different answers depending on who you talk to. Same at the VA. Depending on who you talk to, you might not be getting the right information. There's some really good people over the VA. There's some people that just are dialing it in, or people that are misinformed themselves. You get a retired veteran widow docent over at the VA. They might not know in detail. However, if you're working with a dedicated veteran service organization, a VSO, or you have your local VA liaison, like they do in Massachusetts, does a great job. They'll be very knowledgeable, and you're getting the correct information. Of course, there are accredited advocates out there, and you could just look. You can look. There's a list. I had to do training. I had to apply. I had to do training. I have to do ongoing training to keep my VA accreditation. That allows me to file applications on behalf of my clients for benefits, and then fight for them should they get denied, and do appeals. Now, you can't just do this for everybody. You have to be accredited. You can do it for a loved one. So if it's your dad, your mom, you could apply for benefits on their behalf. You can do it for a family member, but you cannot do it for your neighbor, not do it for your friend. Of course, you could do it for yourself or a family member. But beyond that, you have to have the accreditation. And of course, it's always better to work with somebody that knows the ins and outs in the background, instead of just doing it on your own, which you could do, but why do it when there's other people out there? Filing of the applications is free. The federal government says a veteran service organization, attorney, anyone who's accredited, anybody really who's helping, cannot charge for their services in filing the application. It's free of charge. So that's why there's a lot of charitable organizations that are set up, or veteran service organizations, like the Disabled American Veterans. You have Vietnam Veterans of America. You have Veterans Legal Institute in Orange County. You have a number of other organizations, can't think of some off the top of my head, that they would help veterans with the application process, and they don't charge, but they actually staff, so they're a charity, and they have donations that help pay for their staff, because so that they can do the good work in helping fill out these applications. Because like anything in the military, the government in general, it is forms driven. They're confusing. If you don't, it's like trying to fill out your taxes sometime by yourself. Just there's a lot of different tax guides out there that can help you, and the IRS does a good job, even in their forms, putting instructions that you could follow. And there's, again, a number of tax guides out there. The VA forms aren't like that. So it's just a form, fill it in. So if you don't know what you're doing, then you could be wasting valuable time because the application gets rejected and it shouldn't have been rejected. And now you have to go start from ground zero again. So if you're saying, look, I make too much money, or I didn't serve at the right time, or I wasn't boots on the ground in Vietnam or Korea or wherever. I was in the military, but I didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan. I was in another country, or I was just here in the United States, or I was a woman. I got that one recently. It was, I was told because I was a female during Vietnam, and I wasn't serving in country, that I was not eligible for any VA benefits. Couldn't believe it. It's hogwash. Hogwash. That's just misinformation. I don't know who gave that information, but it's wrong. And it was told someone at the VA, well, that person is grossly misinformed and confused. Yes, at the time, it's changed now, but at the time, certain benefits were only available if you served in country in Vietnam. It had nothing to do with gender, and you're still eligible for a host of other benefits. At the very minimum, VA healthcare. So this poor woman who served in the Navy, who was high up on the chain of command and was teaching submariners how to manage and run their submarines in the Gulf of Tonkin. That woman was being told that she could not even get basic VA healthcare because she wasn't boots on the ground in Vietnam as a woman. So there's crazy stuff out there. I hear it. I'm telling you, don't assume. Or I wasn't married to my spouse when he or she served. Nope, that doesn't matter. You just got to be married to them when they pass away. Or I wasn't injured. I didn't get a Purple Heart. Nope, not an issue. I got a less than honorable, other than honorable discharge. Nope. So these are all the things that I hear. So we are going to dispel all of that. Takeaway: if you are a veteran, you need to explore the benefits. At the minimum, you're going to apply and enroll in VA healthcare. That's what we have here. This is how you enroll. Go to this website right here, and you can create an account, and it's going to walk you through. It's really easy to do. If you have access to the internet, get someone to help you access to the internet. You can sign up and create your account. You're going to have to prove that you're you. So you're going to need your service records, which is your DD-214. They're going to have to prove your identity. So they're going to walk you through all that. And you're going to fill out a little application, let them know what kind of your income insurance, and you're going to submit it and wait for confirmation. You can do all of this online. Now, there's other groups out there that will help you. Like I said, the veteran service organizations. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday morning, and at the Monrovia Library, apparently there have volunteers that help veterans. So there might be something like that in your area. Just be careful that these people are actually helping you and not trying to do something out of the goodness of their heart, but not doing it well. So you want to make sure that you're following up and just not sitting around waiting for them to contact you because they may not have submitted something. And of course, that way 1-800 number is right there. So how do I get the military records? How do I get the DD-214? So this was important with Connie and Bill. Remember, we'll bring it back to Connie and Bill. So Connie didn't have Bill's DD-214, didn't have that record. Not uncommon, right? You get it when you discharge, but it gets lost. And here we are decades later. Bill's in his 70s and he's been out of the service for 40 plus years. How do you get that? So this is how you get the record. So we need to establish. Now Connie says Bill doesn't qualify because he was only in the reserves. Another objection that's false. You can still get VA benefits even if you were in the reserves, but we're talking about looking at aid and attendance benefits, and as we'll see in a moment, there are some restrictions, but still, you need to get the DD-214 to assess to see what the discharge status was, when they served, what the time period was, of course, what branch they served in. And to some degree, if they have a Purple Heart, they were wounded at the time, that could be helpful, not prohibitive. So you got to file for it. You can go to eVet Recs, which is, if you go to the National Archives website, you just click through. We'll have that link at the end. So stick around to the end, and we'll get you that link that you go right to the National Archives webpage, and then you can apply and fill out the standard form 180 and then apply, and then they'll send you the records. Now, how long do you have to wait? Depends. You can get this in a month. It could be 5 months. Bill had to wait for a long time before they got him. I think it was 5 months. There's been some big fires over the years that have destroyed some of these military records, and they're trying to piece them back together on a move forward basis. The veterans that have served more recently, those records are all digitized, so there should be no issue in getting it. And what you're going to get is a DD-214 form, which is a one-pager that gives all that information of when you served, where you served, what your discharge status was, what branch you served in, and what awards and accommodations you received. The other piece is you're going to need your military file that shows all the places that you served at. And I'll explain why we need that, because of a new rule called the PACT Act. And we're going to go over that in a second. So what's going to happen, you're going to apply for your military records. They're going to just send you the whole copy of your military records. And they can do it digitally. This is not going to be any healthcare records. If you're going to the VA right now and you're getting some healthcare, they're not going to send your medical records. They're sending just your administrative records that you had during your time of service. So you're going to need that. All right, so now back to Bill. Like I said, Connie stressed. I could tell you there's about $750,000 that they have stocked away. Bill's getting a little pension from his civilian work. They're getting Social Security, but money's still tight. Money's still tight because they're on a fixed income. And they are just on a fixed income, cost of living increase. They live out here in California. Things are expensive. So they are, before Bill's illness, they were kind of on par, right? They're break even. And some months not. Some months they were in the red, so they would have to dip in a little bit to their savings. That's okay. It was only a little bit, and there's a lot of it, and we're all good. And oh yeah, by the way, they're over 73, so they're getting distributions from their IRAs as part of the income too. So they've done a great job saving in that department. The bulk of that 750,000 is in IRAs. So there you go. So, but yet they're still going to need more because Bill's cost of living is going to increase with his caregiving. If we're paying $10,000 for in-home care, which isn't a far stretch because he needs a lot of supervision, then that's going to exceed his income that he has. Let's just say his income total a month, if we were to, break it down, is, around $7,000. $7,000 a month. Normally you'd be able to live. He's got a small mortgage, your house is paid off, and now he's just paying his normal monthly bills, and we can budget 7,000. Taxes are low, and so on and so forth. However, that 7,000 quickly becomes not enough if Connie has to pay 10,000 for care, or even 8,000 for care, 2,000 a week. Then that's going to go. They're going to be in the red, and they're going to have to start pulling 1,000 out of their IRA. Now you say, well, 1,000, that's not too bad. If you said they have 750,000 in savings, that should be sufficient. But what's going to happen is that these costs are going to increase now to $15,000, and so the burn rate is going to go a lot faster. There could be medical bills on top of that if there are other incidents that happen. So how are we going to do that? We're going to buffer it with money like we do with long-term care insurance. So let's look at aid and attendance. The way I look at the VA benefits, bunch of buckets. All right, we're going to look into each bucket to see if that benefit can help. Bucket 1, aid and attendance. Bucket 2, VA caregiver program. Bucket 3, disability compensation. That's there. So those are the 3 main buckets we're going to be looking in. And so we start with aid and attendance because it's the easiest one to explore and apply for and receive. So aid and attendance, you can see this is real money. This is really real money. So married veterans, so Bill and Connie can get a check this year for $2,727 a month if they qualify for aid and attendance at the maximum rate, the maximum allowed pension rate, MAPR, MAPR. Government, military especially, loves acronyms. So do estate planning attorneys, actually. So we kind of go hand in hand. So the maximum allowed monthly right now for 2024 is that number on the screen. That will change. We're going to get a line of sight on this in the next couple of weeks for next year for 2025. It'll go up for cost of living. So let's call it a cool 2,800. That's easy math. So moving forward, if you think for the next year, $2,800 a month you can get for aid and attendance. Would that be helpful? Absolutely. Is it going to pay for everything for Connie and Bill? No, it's not. But hey, look, if they're at a deficit of $1,000, they need to pay out $8,000 and they have income of $7,000. Well, guess what? This is going to put them in the black and then some. If their deficit is $3,000, they're only going to be in the red $200. That is going to really soften the blow on pulling down on their savings. And of course, if they're losing 200, I'm sure that their financial advisor can help recoup that with some good investments. So this is super important. As you can see, it's available for single, married veterans, surviving spouses. And two veterans, of course, you get an extra boost there. But important is well veterans with ill spouse. Well veterans with ill spouse. That means you are the veteran, but it is your spouse that has dementia or is sick with cancer and can't take care of themselves, or they have other diagnosis and they need assistance. Well, they didn't serve. Misassumption. We don't qualify because my wife did not serve in the military. I did, so I can get the benefits, but I don't need them because I'm healthy. But my wife is the one that's sick. Guess what? Well, veterans with ill spouse get money. So yes, your wife's not applying. They're not the applicant. You are the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Veteran, and you apply and you can get up to $1,806. And again, tax-free. Let me reiterate. Say it slow. Tax-free. This is not taxable. So you're getting this stipend on a monthly basis. It's free. You're not paying for it, and the government isn't taking anything out. So you're getting these the real dollar-to-dollar value here that could be important and significant. It could be avoid the hair that broke the camel's back. So yes, let's do aid and attendance. Let's find out if we can get that $2,800 for Bill and Connie. So here we just want to mention that there are newish rules in aid and attendance via pension land. The laws were changed favorably, I think, and I think they're favorable in 2016. So 2016 changed the paradigm of applying for aid and attendance. There was a Wild Wild West earlier before that. It was like, hey, we'll send the application and maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. We compare two veterans, they're very similar, but one got it, one didn't. We just don't understand. It's kind of ad hoc, case by case. And so they changed that in 2016 because obviously that's not fair and that's not equitable. So what they did was they created some bright line rules, which are super important. And we have to operate within those rules, and we're looking at that. There's 3 years of a look back period, up to 5 years penalty, bright line rules. There are bright line rules for eligibility. So these are good things. So we know they're going to look back 3 years on your financial accounts to see what kind of money you had for the last 3 years, what you did with it. And if there is an ineligible transfer, so not unlawful, but ineligible transfer, that will trigger a penalty. That penalty is time, and it will be time you have to wait before you can get the benefits. So the penalty, the maximum penalty is 5 years. That's not helpful. If you need the money now, if Connie Bill need the money now, and they hit with a 5-year penalty, that's going to hurt. That's not going to be helpful at all. So let's look at what the qualifications are that these bright line rules set up. Eligibility criteria. So first we got to look at, well, it's broken out really, eligibility and financial, right? So eligibility has these 3 categories: military service, the when you served, your discharge, your medical need, and then your discharge status. So going through them, you had to be on active duty for at least 1 day during a wartime period in order to and you have to be active duty for 90 days, but only one of those days need to be in a during a wartime, and an eligible branch. So we got to look at that. You need to have a medical need for aid and attendance. Remember, I said there's basic, it's lower cost. You don't need any medical need for basic. So if you're impoverished or you just don't have a lot of money, maybe you're an older veteran, you are still kind of independent, but you don't have a lot of savings, then you can qualify for basic. So there's that. But most people are talking about homebound or aid in attendance. So we need to show that either you're homebound, you cannot get out of the house, or you need assistance with two activities of daily living, or you have the cognitive or physical impairments. So Bill's got dementia. He needs help feeding himself. He needs help with transportation. He needs help showering, right? So that's where he's at right now. And discharge status has to be any kind except dishonorable. So no exceptions here. Remember, I said healthcare, there was an exception. It could be any discharge status. You get healthcare benefits, although limited at dishonorable. Here, you cannot be dishonorably discharged, but it could be other than honorable, less than honorable, or of course, honorable. All will fall under eligibility. So Bill, let's take, and of course, there's financial criteria. Before I get to Bill's example, your net worth has to be less than that number on the screen, $155,356. This number will go up in a couple weeks for 2025. Not a lot. I mean, it started with the law started as was 150,000. Then it's only gone up to 155,356 since 2016. So it'll go up a little bit, but not much for next year. So we're kind of working within this rule of thumb, 155,000. If you have less than that, you're good. If more than that, you're not good. You're not eligible. This is net worth. Net worth means the combination of the fair market value of the things that you own plus the annual amount of income you receive a year. So that is net worth. So you might be on 150,000 in assets. You're like, well, yes, I'm good. No, we have to look at what your income was for the year and tack that on. So that's part of the analysis. But not all assets are counted. So there are some exclusions. Primary residence for sure. It's actually one property. It doesn't necessarily have to be a primary residence. I have situations where the veteran's living with family, or they're renting in a condo because they came down from Northern California or another state, but they kept their former home and they rented it out. That's okay, as long as there's just one property. One vehicle, it could be any vehicle. You could be driving a Rolls Royce. You can be driving the souped up Escalade. You can have all of that retrofitted to be a classy, expensive transport vehicle. It's one vehicle. Burial contracts and plots, and your personal property in your house, not counted. So that's helpful because a lot of times people's biggest asset is property. Then we also have to look at income, but special income for VA purposes. Some of you might have heard of girl math. There's Kevin math in my office, and then there's the VA math. So VA math is the most perplexing one of all, and we scratch our heads, but we need your income, veterans' income, to be less than the maximum allowed pension rate. So if we have $2,800 as what the VA will give the veteran for aid and attendance if they're married, in my example, so the VA is going to give Bill $2,800, then his annual income, and that's monthly income, and that counts the income his wife's bringing in, that needs to be less than $2,800. If we get it to zero, he gets all $2,800. If he had $1,400 of income, he only gets $1,400 of the VA benefit, sliding scale based off of your income. Certainly, if he is earning $2,800 or more in income from other sources that are accountable sources of income, then he's not going to get anything. He's not, while he might qualify for everything, he's actually not going to get a check. So how do we know that your military service counts, how you're eligible? Because I said this benefits for those that are 65 and older that are wartime veterans. So we got to look at the eligibility periods. They're posted up here. They're updated frequently every year at the VA. Note here two specific things, and we have to know we don't have that many World War II veterans that are left, but the ones that are tended to have served towards the end of the war. And that even includes up to the end of 1946. So even though the war is not We're not at war anymore for wartime period, end of 1946. Remember, you just have to serve 1 day in that time period. So literally it could be you have an active duty day on December 31st, 1946, you're good. And then you serve the rest of your 3-4 years afterwards, you're fine. We have Korean conflict, goes to those dates. Vietnam War is tricky. Vietnam War, for most people that were not in country, is the August 5th, 1964 date to May 7th, 1975. So there could be a gap between the Korean War, they call it conflict, to the Vietnam War. However, if you served in country in Vietnam, they have since extended. Now, this happened, last few years. It hasn't always been the case, but they extended out the wartime period for those that were in country, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. You can prove that you were there, then there is no gap period between, there's a very small gap period between the Korean conflict and the Vietnam War, months, but you are eligible if you served in country, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos from November 1st, 1955. So that is helpful for some people that didn't serve in the 60s, but served in the 50s as advisors. So keep that in mind. Of course, Gulf War, yes, to present. So starting in the Gulf War, the first Gulf War in 1990, then going forward, it is all you're all wartime there. So all the people all the veterans that served in Afghanistan, Iraq, you're good to go. It's wartime. So what active branches? It might seem obvious. I'm in the Navy. I'm in the Army. Bill's the Navy. Great. Navy counts. Marines, all the major ones. Coast Guard counts. Now we have the Space Force, not just a funny movie, but an actual branch. Merchant Marines for those that were in World War II only. So if you're Merchant Marines after World War II, after the end of 1946, sorry. They made that bright line rule. National Guard counts. And for Bill, this was the big issue. Connie was always proffering, and this is coming from Bill when he was well. I'm not going to qualify for VA benefits because I was just in the Naval Reserves. I wasn't active duty. I didn't go anywhere. I was in the Navy Reserves. I did my weekends. I did my 2 weeks. That's it. Well, wrong. Actually, reserves count. As long as the veteran has 90 days, at least 90 days of active duty service, one of which was in a wartime period, then you qualify for having the active service, meaning that element. So here, Bill started serving in 1968, so clearly during wartime. We had to get his DD-214 because he didn't have it. So we looked at his DD-214, and wouldn't you know, he had 124 days logged as active duty in the Navy. Why? Because he went to boot camp, and that lasted 124 days for him. So oftentimes those in the reserve still qualify because of boot camp. But you do have to check. So if it was said 89 days, sorry, you're out of luck. But for Bill, 124 days, great. Now he qualifies, even though he feels like he's different because he was only in the Naval Reserves. That's okay. Still a veteran under the federal government. So Bill now is like, this is getting better for Bill. We might be able to get aid in attendance. However, we're going to run into a roadblock for Bill right here, financials. And that's because Bill does have too much money. He has the $750,000 in IRAs, mostly in IRAs. And his house, great, doesn't count. That's about $1 million, but it doesn't count. But his savings does. So he has well over net worth. So that's just going to cancel him out altogether. So sorry, Bill. Now, there are some things that we can do, that I do, is that we transfer assets appropriately into specialized irrevocable trusts. And then we can have those move from a countable asset to a non-countable asset. And there's this very specialized, complicated way to do this. It does work, though. And I said complicated, it's not something you're going to be able to do on LegalZoom, but it is something that I do quite often, and it works. However, here we're talking about IRAs, and so IRAs are funny and difficult financial accounts, and there's a lot of tax issues that go along with trying to pull money out of an IRA. So depending on the size of the IRA, we might not want to pull out the principal or close the account to shift it into an irrevocable trust. We can't shift the account into the irrevocable trust because that will generate a taxable event according to IRS. And so let's say you had $375,000, Bill had $375,000 in his IRA. He retitles the IRA into his irrevocable trust. IRS says that is a taxable event. That is just like you got $375,000 of income. Now you have to pay at the maximum rate because you are going to be in the highest tax bracket. That's not good. That defeats the whole purpose of having the IRA. So we don't want to do that. Can't do that. And then we don't want to just bleed the assets down until everything gets to 155,000. However, we might want to look at something else for Bill, which we will. We got to move to a different bucket. But for the rest of you, let's say, okay, I still qualify because everything else I can transition over. Maybe it's a brokerage account, it's another property. I can transition that into this irrevocable trust, or I don't have all those things just on paper already. I'm under this amount for net worth, including my annual income. You're good to go on the asset side. Little side note, for those of you that have homes or children out there who parents have homes and one or both your parents is a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, and you're saying, we need to sell mom or dad's house to pay for care, hold up. Don't do that. Contact an accredited VA attorney because we need to transfer that house prior to it being sold. And that the sales proceeds need to land in this special piggy bank, I call it. Otherwise, you have just prevented your mom or dad from getting VA benefits for 3 to 5 years. All right. So just remember that if mom and dad have a house and you're like, the only way we're going to be able to pay for care and assisted living or boarding care, skilled nursing is going to be to sell the house because dad needs to go to memory care and no one's at home. We sell the house. Or mom's going to move and rent, or mom's going to move in with one of the kids, dad's going to move to assisted living. They're both going to move to assisted living, and we're going to sell the house. Don't sell the house until you talk to a VA accredited attorney. Guess what? You can sell the house. We just got to do it in a special way to maintain the eligibility for your parents. If you just sell the house, the money goes into their checking account. They are going to have too much money, and they will not be able to transfer it in a special way without being penalized. So I will tell you, in Southern California, if you sell a house, you're not going to be able to be eligible for 3 to 5 years if you just have the money flow into your parents' bank account. Get it to go into an irrevocable trust. It has to be a special VA asset protection trust. Talk to me or any accredited attorney about it, accredited VA attorney. So let's say we satisfy net worth. All right, then we got to move to the last criterion, and that is income. Now, here's where the VA math comes in. We call it income for VA purposes. So we look at, okay, what's your gross income? Social Security, maybe you get SSI, you get SSDI, that all counts. Your pension, you're getting required minimum distributions, you have a rental property, all of that is income, and it's your income in total, yours and your spouse's. Boom. All right. So break that down, divide it by 12 on a monthly basis. Are you over the $2,800? Connie and Bill? Yes, they are. They are over that. But guess what? Here's where the fun math comes in. You can make deductions. There are unreimbursable medical expenses and education can be deducted. So yes, your spouse, Connie, could go back to school, and that's a deductible expense technically. Now, I'm probably not going to do that. What we're looking more at is the unreimbursable medical expenses, so co-pays. Anything you are paying out of pocket for a medical purpose or caregiving purpose is a deduction. This is huge. This is part of the change was caregiving is included. That means you're paying for in-home care, assisted living, memory care, boarding care. Those are big bills. So we can zero out the income for VA purposes. So for example, Bill ends up having $7,000 of in-home care a month. Oh, guess what? His $7,000 of income that he is receiving is completely zeroed out, wiped out. So he makes $0 according to the VA, which means he is now eligible for the maximum allowed pension rate, the amount being $2,800. Now, if you can't get all the way to zero, you'll get a sliding scale. So if it was that we were at $1,000 that is countable income, then Bill's going to get $1,800. But if Bill or any other veteran needs any sort of in-home care or assisted living, memory care, you betcha that's going to most likely zero out the veteran's income. Remember, the look back is 36 months. So we do have to account for certain transfers. So this means we have to plan in advance. I can't stress this enough. So if you're a veteran listening to this and you say, look, I am fine. I don't have any issues right now. Guess what? The longer you live, more likely you're going to have some medical issues that you're going to need caregiving. It's just a fact, Jack. It doesn't matter if you don't have dementia. Physically, you might need caregiving. You're in a wheelchair. It's a fact, Jack. The cards are stacked against you. So we should plan in advance because we can move whatever the heck we want to move into a trust, do some gifting, what have you, in advance. So if we do that 36 months ago, it doesn't matter, or 37 months ago, it doesn't matter. It's off the grid. So we make these transfers now. Hope you don't need to have any of this money, the care for 36 more months, and then you're eligible no matter how much money you transferred in month 37. So we can avoid that by, and I preach this, it's like, you're a veteran, you're fine, you're like, a lot of my clients in 40s and 50s, hey, veterans, guess what? Especially those in their 50s, guess what? Next decade might not look so good for you. Why don't we do that planning now? Certainly if they're in the 60s, guess what? Same conversation. Next decade might not look well for you, but it might even be sooner than that. So let's work on transferring into this irrevocable trust because we can transfer lots of money and now it's off the accountable table. You're going to meet net worth. You're going to be able to get that financial stipend when you need it. And that's going to help and prevent the spend down on your assets and savings, which you're trying to leave for your spouse, trying to leave for your kids or grandkids. All right. So let's get some planning. All right. So now survivor's benefits, just know it's just like what we just talked about. Okay. But it's for the survivor. But there's other things here. So you can go to VA, there's all sorts of other things, but the pension down here is the same, except it is just less money. So you see here in the green, it's $1,762.83 a month. That's the maximum. That's less than our $2,800 example. And it will go up though in a couple of weeks. We'll see the change. Now, the biggest requirement is that the person applying, the spouse, needs to have been married to the veteran at the time of death. Okay, it doesn't mean they have to be married during their service, but if they are legally divorced at the time of their death, they're okay. If they're separated, they're divorced, not okay. If they're separated, okay. If they're married, of course, okay. That's what it is. So, you keep this in mind if you're thinking about getting a divorce or you have divorced a veteran. Maybe you want to think about getting married to one. I don't know. I'm just kidding, of course. But this is important to look at that. Same financial criteria as a net worth thing. So we need to look at your deceased spouse's DD-214 to make sure that they're eligible for military service. We need your marriage certificate. And then you need to have a medical need. So the surviving spouse needs a medical need, usually not a problem. So it's different from Medi-Cal. Just keep in mind, you've heard some things, numbers, asset requirements, income requirements. That sounds similar. Look back sounds similar to Medi-Cal, but it's different numbers. There is no asset restriction for Medi-Cal anymore. There is not going to be a look back period for Medi-Cal either. It was only 30 months before. It's shrinking. It's now only 15 more months. And in 15 more months, there'll be zero look back because of the new rule that went into effect in January. So there's not going to be any asset restriction. There's not going to be any look back. So you can transfer assets any which way you want, have as much as you want, but there's still going to be income limitations in Medi-Cal like there is with the VA. So we have to be mindful of that. And better for the VA benefits, there's no recovery. So the federal government's not going to give a bill saying, hey, we paid Bill, literally, paid Bill and Connie all these tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in aid and attendance, and we heard Bill died, we want that money back. That does happen in Medi-Cal, and you might have heard stories. So there can be some estate recovery, and the state of California is keeping tabs, and that's why you have to reach out to the Medi-Cal when someone dies to let them know that that person died, so they can check and see, hey, was this person receiving Medi-Cal? If they were, boom, we're going to send a bill to the estate. Now, that's a whole other conversation. You can protect that. So if you want to know more information about protecting assets from Medi-Cal estate recovery, let me know. Hey, we might even do a little video on it. VA Caregiver Support Program. This is super important. for our spouses. So this is another bucket. So now we're saying, Bill, sorry, you can't get the aid in attendance. Let's go to Connie. Connie, we can get you money. Why? Because you are a spouse or you're a child of a person that is in need of caregiving. You can get money, and you can see the money here in the financials, level 1, level 2. This isn't insignificant amounts. These are significant amounts. And it's going to Connie, separate, the spouse separate from the veteran. So it's not, again, there's not going to be an impact if we get money for Bill. If we got the aid in attendance for Bill, Connie can still apply for a VA caregiver program. If Bill is rated disabled through the disability compensation and is getting 90% disabled, and he's getting nearly $2,300 a month, Connie can still pursue VA caregiver support programs. So, and it's not just about finances. There's other resources, clinical services, education. That's just that general support. But the requirements are the veteran needs to have a service-connected disability, and it has to be at 70% rated. And they need to have help with one activity of daily living. So the big one is the service-connected disability rating of 70% or higher. The 180L, not so bad because you can do transportation. Bill doesn't drive anymore, 180L. That we got to look at that. The other thing is it could be a veteran that needs supervision based on neurological injury, disability, TBI, traumatic brain injury, or it's dementia related like Bill. So those are the criterions you can apply. So Connie's like, yeah, we meet those. We can meet those, but I got to go see if Bill is 70% disabled. If not, then I can pursue it on the basis of he needs supervision. This is where you get more information. This link here, caregiver.va.gov. This is a bucket we can look at, all right? And Connie's side got this. Boom, that was great because we didn't get aid in attendance. We got VA caregiver support. And the reason why we got VA caregiver support is because we had to look at disability compensation, and we had to look to see if there was a service-related disability. And that means that there's going to be an assessment by the VA. You're going to have to go to the VA. They're going to have to get the doctors involved, and they're going to give a rating. So the problem and challenge with things like MS or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's is that it's hard to create a causal connection to your service because you're so attenuated from the time that you serve. So Bill served 1968 to 71. Now he has Alzheimer's in 2023. 2022, he gets diagnosed, right? So there's a big in-between time. Well, we can't tie that to service, even though really, some of the science is starting to have those links. But that is what it is. So that's a challenge. There are certain illnesses like PTSD, however, that are different. We can link that even though it might not have manifested for a long time and not just immediately. I had a client that the PTSD didn't really surface until the 2010s, and because he finally retired, and then he wasn't active and didn't have distractions, and to distract him from things and manifestations of PTSD, and then he started drinking and went downhill. And then he was diagnosed PTSD from his time in Vietnam serving in combat. Now he's rated 100% disabled. But then there's also these presumptions, these presumptive disabilities. If you're in country in Vietnam, you are presumed to have been exposed to Agent Orange, and now you have a disability, whether you can show you had cancer or not. Okay, so they have widened that presumptive net to include a greater swath of potential people through the PACT Act, which was passed by the Biden administration. No surprise there, given his veteran status in connection with the military through his family and others. March 5th of this year, this went into effect. And this was really geared towards those that served in Iraq and Afghanistan that were exposed to chemical toxins, especially burn pits. Although it's not limited to that, it also extends to anybody that was exposed to certain dangerous, hazardous materials or toxins. If you're in Iraq or Afghanistan, presumption. If you were serving in a certain base in Germany, presumption. So there's a list here of places, which is why we need to get the military records to see where the veteran served, because now under the PACT Act, it might be that there is a presumption of disability. Now, it's just a presumption, all right? So the VA might push back and try to defeat the presumption, but it's a great place to start. So that's what has assisted with a number of veterans that we know that weren't otherwise able to show the causal connection to their disability. So they were not rated for a service-connected disability. But now, under the PACT Act, they immediately were. So now they went from getting nothing to a large percentage of $2,300 a month, or maybe the full boat. So that has been really impactful. The PACT Act has been helpful. So if you have been denied in the past for a service-connected disability, it is time for you to revisit this, because we need to take a look at your military record to see if you served in places in which now the PACT Act says you're presumptive. This is kind of like the Camp Lejeune, right? If you're in Camp Lejeune, presumptive. And you also can be a part of a class action lawsuit. That class action lawsuit is separate, but being on Camp Lejeune, presumptive. So you got to check it. We got to get your military records to take a look. So with Bill, however, Bill was not eligible for this because he served in the Naval Reserves here in the United States, and where he served was not on that list. So we don't have the PACT Act, but remember, Connie was able to get the VA caregiver support, and there's 2 levels, and she was able to get the higher level because she needed to supervise Bill. So the Alzheimer's, dementia veterans, their spouses are going to get a higher amount because that's level 2. Level 1 is not if you don't need the supervision. So she's getting, if we remember, what's she getting? Almost $3,000 a month. She's getting $2,909.67 a month. Wonderful. That's certainly going to help pay for the further cost of the in-home care, and certainly help pay some of the assisted living and memory care that's going to come. So there's different amounts if you're single or married. And the important note here, you cannot double dip 100% between disability compensation bucket and aid and attendance bucket. Remember, VA caregiver, separate bucket, not double dipping. But between our veterans, hey, I get aid and attendance, or do I get disability compensation? Those you can double dip, but not 100%. So you got 70% aid and attendance, 30% disability compensation. That's fine. You just can't have 100% aid and attendance and then get money as disability compensation, or vice versa. Okay, something to know. Key takeaways here as we wrap this up. A lot of information here, so thanks for staying on. These are our key takeaways. We really want you to be proactive. We want you to know that there's vital financial support under aid and attendance for non-service related disabilities like dementias, like MS, that are common in the baby boomers now. And if you're paralyzed from a car accident as a civilian, you're disabled, you can get it. It's not all cognitive. I've been talking a lot about cognitive, but it's also physical. And I want you to know there's a lot of myths out there. So if you have said, I'm not eligible, I know I'm not eligible, you're eligible. And also, if you feel like, look, I don't deserve this because I served here in the reserves in the United States and I wasn't overseas, those guys deserve it, it's not me. Guess what? There's a pot of money for everybody. You're not taking away from any other veterans' benefits. It's not a zero-sum game. The government has allotted for money for everybody. So if you're not going to take it, it's just going to sit there and it's going to get diverted to be used for something other than for veterans, right? So you're not doing other veterans any favors by not taking it. You're just doing yourself a disservice, and your family, it could really use that money. Okay, the VA Caregiver Support Program, huge new thing. Lots of people don't know about it. You know about it now. You can spread the word. Here, as I promised, you get to the end, there are resources. Here they are. So here are the links. So thank you, everybody. That's a wrap. Happy to have been of service today. If there's any other things that we can do, you want to talk one-on-one, please reach out to our office. We can connect that way. If you have ideas for other things you want to know, questions you want to do, whether it's VA related or related to something else in the estate planning, financial planning, insurance planning, life planning universe, let us know, and we're happy to do a lunch and learn on it. It's all about getting some good information to you.
All right.
Thanks,
Well, thank
everybody.
you guys for being here, and we'll see you at the next one.